with Renee.
What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of Saturdays with Renee. Geechee Yaw in the building. Jared Ball. What's up, Renee? How you like that?
What's up?
No prep. We just go live.
Just go live. Just go live. It's all good. Just go live.
So this happens to me all the time. I get ready and then I go get unready and forget. Right. And then I see it's 11 o'clock and I was just like, oh, I saw everybody was all there. I just said, let me just push play. We'll figure it out.
It's all good. It's all good.
So welcome everybody. I hope everybody who is joining us live is doing as well as it could be expected. To those who will see and hear this later, peace and welcome to you. Please like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. It's in the show description. And make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss all the offerings coming forth, all the things here at Black Liberation Media. So what's up, good people? Geechee, what brings you around these parts on a Saturday?
I don't know, man. Somebody called me out of my bed, so I was like, all right, show up. What's happening?
Look, I don't want Geechee to think that he's on my list. So whenever we do the organizing thing, I always try to send the invite. So.
You want my real answer though? My real answer is my grandma is in town. Oh, I'm in town with my mother, my grandma, my aunt, and my mother's next door neighbors from Nicaragua. And they're doing all the red scares, anti-communist stuff. My grandma saying, don't go to Cuba, be careful. And I just had to get the hell away from them. So that's why I'm here.
So on the one hand, congratulations. It's beautiful to be around family. We love our families. And at other times, we don't mind if we have a few minutes on our own. I'm just going to speak for myself. Just speaking for myself. Just a couple minutes. Just a few minutes. Not more than that.
Listen, her next door neighbor was like, did you know, like all the socialists and the communist countries, all the politicians, they're wicked, they're rich. She said the Venezuela president, his son is driving a gold Ferrari. I'm like, well, where is this at? And she
gold Ferrari. And it's true because all the leaders in the West are just broke. They just barely making it. All the capitalist countries, they just hanging on like Jeff Bezos and them. I'm a little worried. Like, are y'all all right?
Anyway.
Barely making it.
Yeah, I can't stand y'all. Seriously, I can't stand y'all.
But our guest is here.
Our guest is here. Whoop whoop.
So are we doing any bells and whistles?
I don't think she's doing no. She's like, no, she don't need no bells and whistles.
Wait a minute. Can we at least
there we go.
A little bit. All right. A bell, maybe not the whistles, just a little bell.
Oh man.
So who's our guest?
Mary? So Mary Hooks is joining us for the first half of the show. Thank you, beloved, for joining. Mary and I have been literally on calls like every week at this point, planning a convening that's coming up in Atlanta. But one of the big things that I wanted to bring Mary on to discuss, because we are always all the time having these conversations about organizing and why you should join an organization and the importance of being in community with other people with shared goals and focus. And so I thought to myself, Mary can come on and talk about it, and we'll drag Geechee on and we'll talk about it. And since they're both in Atlanta, we can squeeze in a little Atlanta Cop City conversation in the mix of it. And so this is what we do. We bring people on to have these conversations. So welcome, Mary. Thank you for joining.
Indeed, welcome.
What's up, y'all? What's good? It's what a treat. What a treat to be on.
So there's a whole lot, but I want first Mary, and don't yell at me. I didn't actually warn you I was going to do this. So in our run sheet is a little Twitter clip that went viral with young Mary speaking the truth to the people. When Jared's got the face, because this is what Jared does every Saturday.
Because
when Geechee's on, Jared forgets that there's two run sheets. There's a Geechee run sheet and there's a non-Geechee run sheet. And so
I need the Geechee run sheet link because I can't find it. And I yeah. So somebody please drop that.
I'm gonna drop
in the
it.
chat.
I'm gonna drop it.
Sometimes it happens, man. It happens.
It does. It does happen.
I forgot about the run sheet too, so we are good.
I know, but you this morning sent a text that said, "Where am I going for the run sheet?" And so,
oops.
Oh wait, are you saying Jared is doing what Diallo does every Friday morning?
See, I wasn't even gonna call him. See, yeah, there y'all go calling out.
Wow,
folks. Y'all not getting me in trouble this morning. I am not. Nope.
You
Not
can't
doing
do
it.
nothing around here.
Not doing it.
All right, so
the X link, the one in column D.
In column D, there
we go. That's the one.
You call it. Okay, here we go. Hold on
one.
a second. Watch this right here. Bam. So the tweet says on Thursday, APD, the FBI, GBI, and ATF executed 3 search warrants and made 1 arrest in pursuit of evidence related to an act of arson on police motorcycles. Thursday evening, a journalist asked if organizers condemn the arson. And here we go.
Hell no. No, not at all. And I'm being honest with you, Atlanta deserves more than that. Real talk. They're lucky. This city is lucky. This country is lucky. Atlanta has its hands in literally murdering Palestinians right now. You think we give a damn about some equipment? Not at all. Not at all. But some of us, we cannot take that risk. And those who can, bless them. Bless them. I cannot take that risk. But Lord knows I'll sit with my lighter and be like, damn. So the best thing that I can do is use my voice, use my feet, use my heart, and talk to my people and to organize. And I put my body on the line and show up as much as we can, because we need every means necessary to deal in the police state in which we are dealing with. So I don't care now. And I would imagine my comrades would say the same. No, I'm not gonna condemn nobody for burning up. No, sorry, brother, I ain't gonna condemn nobody for doing righteously what they need to do when our city has silenced every quote unquote proper democratic process. That's right. As one of the students say, if we don't get this in the courts, if we can't get this at council, then we're gonna take it in the streets. That's right. Because our people, our children, my babies, are worth the risk. That's right. That's right. I would like to know, are y'all asking?
Now listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
Can I just I loved all of that, but this is that. Can I just show you my favorite part is even
the face.
It's the walk up. It's when the question gets asked, sis in front. It's like, no, hold on. Look at the face.
I got this.
I'm sorry, man. I love it. It was like, hold up.
Literally in me. I could literally feel something say, what the what? Yeah.
What? And y'all, just so y'all know, that was my first intro to Mary. And I was like, what in the world? Like, what? I was sending it everywhere.
So that was back in February, just for clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mary, will you, before we get too deep into anything, can you talk to folks about who you are, where you're at, what you do, and how you fell into this space.
Yeah. So I'm Mary Louise Hooks, named after my grandmother. I'm based here in Atlanta, but my first home is Racine, Wisconsin. My people out of New Albany, Mississippi, and Tuskegee, Alabama. I've been in Atlanta for about 17 years. Uh, I'm on my front porch right now, one of my favorite places to be. Uh, and I've come into this work back in 2009, 2010. I joined as a member of Southerners on New Ground. They found my scrappy ass in a bar one night, and I asked a woman what she did for work, and she said she was trying to stop the shackling of Black women while giving birth in prison. And I said, "My word, like you doing something about it," and it floored me. You know, I grew up pretty rough, and I didn't know that you could do something about the mess we were seeing. You know, you just feel it like something ain't right. You grew up thinking it's our fault. You blame yourself or blame our people, whatever. And then once she introduced me to song, joined as a member, got an assignment to organize. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt righteous. It felt, you know what I mean, like gospel. I'm like, I'm here for it. I don't understand much of these concepts. And I just, committed my life to it because, as I began to learn, uh, got trained up by other Southern organizers and other folk across the South, and elders poured into me, just committed my life to it. I think in 2013, I joined the staff of Song. They're like, we found some money. We get your full-time attention? Joined the staff of Song. And then served as, many roles and eventually the co-director. And in that work, part of my assignment was to help build the Movement for Black Lives, a national Black-led ecosystem of organizations across the country, Black-led organizations across the country. And in 2021, I believe, at the end of 2020, I had transitioned out of Song, committed 5 years to being in that level of leadership role. And then the Movement for Black Lives was like, all right, we can actually scale up and do the things that we said we wanted to do together that we can't do alone. And was asked to take on that assignment. And so I've been part of the national leadership. Right now, I'm the co-director of the Innovation Lab. And part of that work, part of that work, I'm trying to, the years get mixed up, was doing some things more indirectly as relates to Cop City. But January 2023, after Tortuguita was murdered, there was a direct ask, very specifically, for me to engage the struggle in a different way. And since then have been involved leading a lot of the efforts around the referendum fight, some direct action stuff, a few other fun activities. Um, and as of late, been working with and engaging with other folks across the country who are also grappling with the amazing research that Renee put out that opened all of our eyes to what is actually what time it is on the world's clock as it relates to all these top cities. So, and I'm a mother. I'm a wife of one, mother of two. You know, yeah, that's that's
All
it.
the things, all the
That's
things,
it.
all the things. That's a lot. You said that's it. Like
Mm.
you said something simple.
That's it.
Oh, so thank you. So I don't know. Have you ever? Do you two, Geechee? Do you know Mary? It just occurred to me. I didn't actually ask that question. Have you two ever met?
I don't think Matt. We probably like pound or up that. I mean, I looked up. I was at a couple events that she spoke at, but no, I haven't physically met her. But obviously, I don't think nobody not know Mary in Atlanta. So yeah.
So Geechee is also in Atlanta, and
Uh,
so that part of the reason that I wanted you both on at the same time. So I don't, Geechee, do you want to do, like, I don't think we've ever actually talked about your work with community movement builders. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, and then we can cross into how this work is really like convening in Atlanta and all the things that are happening there?
Okay. I mean, so right now I'm a part of the national. I'm leading the national communication team, and then locally in Atlanta, I'm over political education and also communications. And obviously, we the larger campaign for like struggle around Cop City is one thing, but also organizing in the Pittsburgh neighborhood to help or try to stave off gentrification. So obviously Atlanta CMB chapters in somewhat of a rebuild phase, so helping to kind of like restructure and rebuild I guess resolve any of the contradictions that was there. So that's what I'm engaged in.
Thank you, Jared. And when you unmute, I'll know that you're getting ready to say something. So I'm going to don't let me talk too much. Y'all do this to me every week.
Oh no. I'm just no, I'm good.
Okay. So one of the things that I know, and Jacobin just released an article a couple of days ago about where this process is in Atlanta with regard to the referendum and trying to get the vote to happen. Geechee, I mean, I know both teams have been working on this referendum and the signatures and fighting the city on this. Do you want to give like kind of a where is Atlanta right now with regard to how that's going?
Yeah, well, this city is very much, Andre Dickens is a surrogate for Joe Biden. And so he is very much aligned with his party as it relates to not listening to the will of the people, and so it's still being held up in the appeals court. And so right now we know that part of our dilemma is that we do not have the folks on council who could actually do something about this. And so part of our work is to, what they say, if you can't change the people, you got to change the people. And so there's a special election happening. And one of the movement comrades, who's accountable to movement, is running for the third seat at large, third seat. And so, we're putting some energy behind that. But in addition, part of our work is to engage those folks who signed that petition. And so we have some plans to mobilize folks and to engage people around around not just the petition, but also, and our demand to get this thing on the ballot, but also to further politicize people around what it means to actually, engage in direct democracy and what it actually means to assert a vision for this city that we all can be aligned around with our eye toward 2025. And so we're not letting up as it relates to the referendum. And we're also clear that the assignment is beyond the referendum. And, there's public pressure that continues to happen. This has been a highly decentralized movement here in Atlanta. And so many people are still going after corporate targets. There's a summer of resistance that is also moving and shaking. A lot of trainings have been happening, a lot of arts and culture, political education. Many events are happening throughout the city. And, there's a few other little schemy things that are coming down the pike over the next few months. But yeah, we find ourselves very disappointed, not shocked, but disappointed, I would say, in the way, this Black city, a bastion of democracy in this red state, continues to deny the people the right to vote. And so here we are, still in struggle.
Right on.
Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just filling the space before you unmuted. That's it. It's old radio habits kicking in.
So Geechee, we talk a lot about this whole utilizing electoral politics with regard to organizing and trying to actually push for actual like material condition change. And so you and I have been back and forth about this like forever and a day. So I didn't realize that there was a special election in Atlanta. So thank you, Mary. This is all news to me, and this is so how, what are you thinking? Did you know about this, Geechee? Like what? No? Okay.
No, so I'm obviously still new to the area, so a lot of my action in is learning and understanding what's going on, talking to different people that's there. So even for me to capture information, so we was doing a research project with a couple people on the Cop City's ties to obviously Palestine and things like that, but I'm still kind of in the stage of learning stuff, so I would probably actually have questions for Mary as well, but I didn't know about that election.
Devin Barrington Ward is running. He comes out of years of work. I met him when he was part of one of the founding members of the Black Youth Project 100, and then has done work around close the jail campaigns. We was rolling out in 2020, rolled hard around the defund work, all manner of work. And he's willing to go into the belly of the local beast here. And so, we want to make sure that we continue to have folk, and also holding the limitations, right? We're very clear about what it means to put somebody in office and the limitations of that. So there is, we're not disillusioned at all, but we also know that we have to change the pieces on the board. We have to change, the chessboard has to change. So
I'm glad you brought that up about the limitations, because that's always the problem, right? Like you get excited, and this is part of the, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, like part of the after party plan that you have had in brain now for years was to find people who could actually push for the agenda that regular people needed.
mm-hmm.
And so, when you encounter that as like someone to actually put in place, there's a little bit of, dare I say, faith that has to come with that, right? Because you have to believe that that person is not going to sell you out if they get that seat. And it's been tricky thus far, right? Like every time you get somebody in, unfortunately, it turns into, well, what the hell just happened? I thought you were going to go in there and do the thing that we discussed you doing.
The idea, at least, is that the faith, as you put it, is based in that if we are producing the candidates and the platforms and the agendas and the politics, that the likelihood of them being bought off or corrupted is at least reduced, if as opposed to someone we've only just met through the Democratic Party promoting them to us. But in the end, I used to joke all the time. I mean, we never know how we're going to react when we see our name next to all those zeros. I mean, I've never seen a check with my name on it with enough zeros to make me move, but you never know. So the closer that we all are to organized effort, the less likely any of us are to get corrupted. But yeah, that's at least the idea.
So this is Devin. I actually did recently just met him. Him and his partner, who is also an incredible singer. Drake, don't you sing as well?
I'm doing some freedom singing.
Look, Column B, y'all don't mess around. I
Oh wow, it's already on the run sheet.
It's there though.
But
Mary
wow,
right now is like, Renee set me up. I didn't give her no information. I was like, just come on the show.
I did want to at least just quickly. I appreciated that. I just noticed that that Jacobin article does at least reference your map, Renee. They link to your
I missed
map.
that. Did it really? I missed
that. Because I checked for it. So when I saw this link to dozens of cop cities, I was like, oh, what are they gonna do now? And they do bring it to your Substack. So
well, look at that.
Yeah.
That
so
is news to me. Look at that.
And it's all, and we remind folks, and I can put this back in the show description, the link to this, that you have it's nicely laid out here. The spreadsheet, your methodology, the map itself. So it's a good resource. But I'm glad that they did that. Yeah.
So yeah, I was looking through it too. And I know you said the situation is still in Fed court, but if you could give like a maybe a timeline of what happened. I know there was like a court deadline versus a city deadline, and there might have been some kind of like struggle between the movement and the city. But if you can kind of like fill us in terms of like what happened with the court versus the city's deadline, and then kind of like what's the process now of how it's going in Fed court.
Yeah. So when we initially, they have finally approved the petition. We started hitting the doors. We got, they gave you 60 days to collect. I think it's, forget the percentage, but it's a particular percentage of the amount of people who voted in the last general election. So I think our number was about 58, a little over 58,000 that we would have to collect that could be verified. You're doing a petition, you're going to try to get triple that, double that, whatever, to account for, folks whose stuff is not going to get validated, or they don't live quite in the city, whatever. And what we knew from the jump was that the city of Atlanta had a rule that said you had to be a resident of the city of Atlanta to gather the signatures. And we was like, whoa, like that's not fair. First of all, the folks who this is impacting, technically they're in DeKalb County, so they're saying that the folks whose this thing is and they coming up in their backyard, they can't even participate in collecting signatures. They already knew they weren't going to be able to sign, but they like, we can't even collect. And then it was like, if if somebody who was not a city of Atlanta resident, they had to like be accompanied by somebody who was a resident, and like all of these different ways of trying to maneuver in order to try to make sure that the city of Atlanta resident was actually present when that person got the signature. And there was some other like wild rules, like even if somebody was a valid person who could be valid to sign a petition, it had to be signed within the city limits. You know what I mean? So if you at technically the DeKalb Farmers Market and you see your neighbor and you like, fam, you done signed a petition, you can't do it there. You're like, no, I got to see you back in the city in order to do it, right? And so those were some of and so what we had learned was that in other district courts, when that had been challenged around the residency requirement, that folks, in other courts, they was like, no, this is against violation of people's First Amendment right, with free speech or what have you. And so we made a play to challenge it, because part of our political imperative was to also make sure we're deepening the relationship and work between the residents of DeKalb and those, who are in Atlanta. And so we felt it was of utmost importance to challenge it, potentially raise the ceiling on what could be possible for the next time. And so when we did it, I had a lawyer crew, got some folks to be complainants, I forget the word, but y'all know what I'm talking about, to be on the lawsuit, whatever. And the first judge was like, essentially agreed, gave us an injunction, and was like, and because the city has had this restraint on folks collecting petitions, was like, and we're gonna restart that clock back. So gave us some extra days, and allow people who were not city of Atlanta residents to freely collect signatures. And so the city appealed. City didn't have to appeal. They didn't have to appeal. They decided to appeal, and in a higher court, the 11th Circuit Court. And then that judge just said, literally, they just said, we want to put a stay on the injunction, which pretty means like pause on what y'all was doing. And they said nothing else. So we're like, what you mean? Like, pause, we should turn them in now, pause. People, like, we were just like confused. And by this time, the original date had passed. And so we were like, okay, let's just go ahead and turn in what we got, because we see folks is playing games. And that's why we turned in 116,000. We were prepared. I think we had at least another 2 weeks or so from the injunction that gave us extra time. So then once we did that, turned it in, we were taken by surprise. City clerk like, yo, we'll take these, but we're not going to be able to move a verification process because, you know, the courts is now in the court's hands. And we said, well, you all can drop the appeal. Our lawyer here, city lawyer, get on the phone, drop the appeal. Let's continue to move this thing. And they refused to do that. And so I believe it was in December where the circuit court heard like an arguments around this. And, you know, with these sort of court, when it's like in that stage or level of the court, you know, there's no telling when they'll respond. And, you know, much of people, our assessment has been, if you're going to tell us, you know, pause on the injunction, we're not going to do nothing with the signatures, then, you know, the dignified thing to do is you must then stop and drop the building, right? That's just the right thing to do. Right. At this point, all these people want to make a decision, want to engage, and y'all are continuing to build as if we did nothing, as if 116,000 signatures ain't sitting literally at City Hall right now, in a backroom closet, waiting to be verified and for this to be on the ballot. And so over this time, we've been, trying to strategize what are some legal areas. We've been cleaning up our data to actually be able to engage the list for real. And so that's where we find ourselves. And so much of the pressure, different pressure campaigns, has been around the mayor and him being able to, because he could literally call and just get the appeal dropped right away and let them do what needs to be done.
Right. So since Renee name me on the run sheet, this is the Geechee run sheet. I'm gonna take over a little bit now. But so there's this thing, right? So even with CMB, like being like a radical organization, but then like trying to engage nonprofit. I've heard about you and I've seen your like obviously radical politics, and then I also know that you have to kind of struggle into, I guess, in a nonprofit world as well. And what we do here is talking about like the after party and a radical approach to electoral politics. People call it non-reformist reform. You have municipalism. You have all these language, these terms. But I think the major goal is not always to win office. Maybe you can develop a candidate like we talked about with Devin, but the major thing is to highlight contradictions to eventually, hopefully, radicalize the people who are impacted by those policies.
Yes.
So a question is, so when you think about like the court state, the city's deadline, what is the thought process of like, okay, y'all have a lot of votes, and instead of going with the city's deadline, you went with another deadline. Like, what was kind of like the thought behind that? And do you feel like there could have been a way to even let's keep the city's deadline so that we can expose them, as opposed to not keeping it, and then they're like, oh, see, y'all didn't do the right thing or whatever? Does that make sense? Like what?
Yeah. And there was, I'm like, when did certain chips fall? Because at some point, I think the city didn't take us seriously, because the city didn't also have a process laid out for even like, all right, how do you verify the signatures? What's the controls around it? You know what I mean? Do you allow like folks the public to be able to engage in it, much like you would have folks at the at the poll, like poll watchers? You know what I'm saying? How they would go about doing it. And then eventually, I think as that we were getting closer to, toward the end of our 60-day cycle, and we were like, y'all need to come up with y'all need to have a process. And I believe we actually drafted the process for the city to be like, if y'all gonna, like, we gonna do your job, son. So we do it. And then they obviously edited and added signature match. And so we're like, oh, so y'all gonna literally the same thing y'all said 2 years ago when Abrams was running and different ones was running. The Republicans here have always tried to use signature match as a voter suppression tactic. And all these black Democrats get up, literally was on television, Andre Dickens included, talking about how much signature match is known to be one of, the main voter suppression tactics. And so then when they say, oh, we're going to use signature match on these petitions. And then the problem with that is, last summer was one of the hottest summers on record. Okay. Folks was out here sweating on them sheets. You had folks, coming out the grocery store, you know what I mean, signing, you know what I mean, with bags in their hand, older people who, you know, got the shakes, whatever. And so I'm like, and that's the signature that they want to compare to what's on the voter file, which, you know, could be the signature you had 10 years ago, depending on when you know, initially voted or whatever. And so and though we struggled around that, they still kept that stuff in. And so we were like, yo, it is in our best interest to collect as many as possible, because they are hell bent on getting rid of as many as possible. And so that was what the decision point we were inside of, to like, we want there to not be a question, no matter how many they try to throw out, that we got the number of signatures to get this thing on the ballot. So that was our logic to keep collecting, you know.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well,
Thoughts?
I want to make, since we brought up Dickens and him being part of the problem and trying to force his hand on things, and Mary singing, I feel like we need to play.
So which you said column B?
That's the sorry, the press collective. Yeah, column B. So there's a video that is.
Well, why you find? Oh, I was about to ask a question. Go ahead.
This one here.
That's the one. That's the one.
I went down to the mayor's house and I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. My feet, it's under my feet. Under my feet, it's under my feet. They're gonna let Mayor Dickens walk all over me. We got 116,000 signatures, and our mayor refuses to drop the appeal, so our petitions can't get verified. We're out here because we know that as much as he likes to play with the Republicans, he still has a job and a duty to us. Yes. And in particular, Black women in Georgia. Yes. We are out here. We are demanding that the mayor, Andre Dickens, that he drops the appeal. That he gives us an opportunity to vote. Our mayor is stealing our vote. He can drop the appeal right now. He can drop the appeal right now. But he refuses. He refuses the way we see Biden refusing to call for a ceasefire and pull money.
Mayor Dickens, I want you to pay attention right now, because you in the South. Welcome to Atlanta, the South. The South got something to say.
Yes.
And it means something significant when a group of Black women and femmes come together dressed down in all white.
Okay.
With the rain pouring down on us. I hope you got your people looking out for you, Mayor Dickens, because our people are looking out for us for sure. And they're not going to let you continue on like this. From Atlanta to Palestine, our freedom is guaranteed. Say, bust down that wall. Bust down that wall. Take back our freedom. Take back our freedom. Bust down that wall. Bust down that wall. Take back our freedom. Take back our freedom. Min al-Maya, Palestine Arabia.
I'm a big fan of being a disruption. So was there any response at all? Like, did somebody come to the window and tell y'all to get off the lawn? Like, I'm just curious.
He did not. He did not. Some of his neighbors came out looking like, what is going on at the mayor's house? And of course the fuzz showed up. But you know, we did that action without arrest, which I think was, you know, I think that was would have continue to highlight it. The mayor knew that wouldn't have been good press if all these Black women got arrested outside of his house. But yeah, he did not come out and engage the confrontation.
So I'm curious with like the demands. So there's this thought of like when people make demands, sometimes there are movement. Well, there's things that's birthed out of it. So like, what would you say is like being birthed out of some of these? So like you're out there, you're in front of, I guess, one of his property. I'm not sure if he was there, but in terms of like the people being able to see this, like, what do you think this is communicating to them? And then maybe what do you see is being birthed out of some of these demands or actions?
Yeah, I think in this city where the petty bourgeoisie, black petty bourgeoisie, play a particular role in, the wealth gap, the income gap in this city, the way in which the Atlanta way has run this city, the collaboration with Buckhead and business and the Atlanta black leadership. I think that part of being able to do that is to highlight and call out the contradictions. I think so many people, it is so clear, it is so blatant what is happening in the city. But oftentimes, what gets painted, what gets shown, you know what I mean? The city council, all you see all day is Andre going around kissing babies and cutting ribbons. When most people know that the reality of what's happening is that people are not being, material needs are being met. You know what I mean? Anybody with eyes can see it, and so I think one of the things there is also to inspire other people, and I had a conversation with somebody. I was like, Andre Dickens, one might say he's a beloved mayor. He's a beloved mayor. uh if you don't have a read, you know what I'm saying, but he's a beloved mayor to some. And I'm like, and even those who love him must have the ability and will to critique him. And there is no question that he is on the wrong side of this whole issue around Cop City. And even if we were just looking at the slice around the people's opportunity to vote, he's on the wrong side of this thing. And the people who are around him, surround him, gas him up, all the things. Like, what are y'all saying to this cat? And so I think what is also being built too. There was one of the young homies who did an action at the Bradfield and Gorey, who's the general contractor for the Cop City project. They did an action and shut down the construction site. And they were like, I signed a petition. I did the thing that I thought was going, you know what I'm saying? The path, the way to do it, quote unquote. And then to see the way this city just like is trying to disregard the fact that people said, no, we want to decide on that. And they were like, it was very clear to me that the only thing we have left is to escalate. Like, oh no, this is going to require direct action and confrontation, which has been happening all along. But some people are being deeply radicalized by what they're seeing in the city's, in the city's betrayal. And I think that part of our work, like I was saying, I'm like, Devin is one domino piece. But 2025, it's a local election in this city. And if we do our work well, and if we organize well and continue to, radicalize people again beyond this, the election situation. But I'm like, there's a whole slate of people that must go in. There's a whole slate of people that must go in. Our work is finding those people, being able to find the natural leaders, being able to find the folk, who come from us and who are on assignment, not just because they're like, like you were saying, Jared, being positioned from and sent by the Democratic Party. And I think what we also can be up to is like, really thinking about establishing a block of voters, you know what I mean, who are united around the things that we care about, to actually be able to shift real major policy in this city for years to come. So I'm like, bruh, like, you should have just go ahead and let us vote real quick, because now you got a problem on your hands. Because now we like, you know what I mean? Our minds is, we're thinking a few years out, and so I'd imagine that part of what we're building, is a strong block of people that we can politicize, conscientize, radicalize, and over these next few years be able to make the changes that we need, in terms of local governance, while also continuing to radicalize and bring people into organizing, as we continue to tie this issue to many of the atrocities that's happening across the world.
I think of the many great points you've been making, I mean, that is certainly one that for me is a big deal, that in the last century, at least, the idea of how we engage the vote has been so distorted and misrepresented that as my godfather would always say, that still says that we weren't marching for the right to vote. We were marching for the right to vote as a process into accumulating power. Just voting is insufficient. We need to be an organized body of voters, not just told to go out and get the vote and have the right to vote, but we need to be an organized body of voters who engage for a particular reason in particular ways. So that's exactly the work you're encouraging is and doing is my humble estimation exactly right. That's because we just blindly, I went and vote, we get the little sticker and the thing, and we're filling in blocks and we don't even know who we're talking about. We're doing like a quick and I'm guilty of this too. Like on the way to the poll, my wife is sending me text message summaries of who I'm supposed to vote for. You know what I mean? Because I didn't do enough research. You know what I mean? Or I wasn't
people, personality, pigment, and party.
Never politics. That's exactly right. So the agenda, right. That's
I know.
we need to be organized.
He got nice skin. I'm gonna vote him in.
Did Geechee write those 4 down? Is that written down somewhere? We need to make.
I say it almost every weekend.
All right, there we go. So we have a question here from Hiram. You must read, beloved.
We just don't read, beloved.
Oh, buddy.
Can Mary speak more to the success and challenges of a decentralized struggle, challenges of working through nonprofits in such a politicized issue, or is whichever? Forgive me, Hiram.
Yeah, I think I have an assessment about the decentralized nature in which the struggle emerged, and I think that there has been certainly some ways in which that has served the struggle. It has created a broad way in which people enter. You know what I mean? Multiple tactics have been engaged. Ideologically, you know what I mean? Folks are in many different places. I would like to think that because some of the ways that folks have taken up leadership and done deep political education, like the way community movement builders and other formations have engaged the political education piece, that some folks who came in and it's like, this is all about the environment and the trees, who are now very much clear about environmental racism. Yeah. And so I think that there has been some consciousness raising that's been done to move people further to the left in terms of the politics that they came in with or what have you. And I think that part of the, given the way we've seen the city and the state's response, this repression and the response, I think, has also created a situation where, in a lot of ways, I think that they are, they've certainly targeted a particular type of resistance for sure. But I think that, we've been able to, I wouldn't say that I have seen yet, with the exception of the Bell Fund, where those with like a C3 have been directly implicated. And hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we'll see, whatever. And I think it is also, as a relational organizer, I'm like, you got to join the organization. Where your membership? You know what I mean? Like old school in that way. I think it has also been really difficult to the relational aspect, because the security culture, was really high. People are very conscious around that. And I think it also makes it super challenging. You're like, everybody got a code name. You're like, I don't know your real name in real life. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes for a sort of engagement with people that I think has been really challenging from what I'm used to. And I think that maybe I'd say around last year, there was a struggle around what it meant for formal organizations in that way to take up so much space as it relates to this, massive effort of doing this petition collection. And folks was like, you know what I mean? Not everybody was excited about electoralizing this issue. Let's just be real. And that's fine, because we said it was decentralized, any means necessary. And we're gonna try this one, especially to be able to broaden get and gain more popular support. And so yeah, I think that there's probably some other ways that I'm not thinking about, but those are some of just my initial assessments. And I think, I think that one of the things I know, I work inside of a C3 organizational structure. And I have also, I think, have been always very clear about what time it is, that I have not seen, and I want to, I'll be willing to stand corrected, but I have not seen the way folks have, at least there has not been, I have felt no limitations in what I needed to do, or the way I've seen other work move with those that I know who have that structure in service to this issue. And I know it has come up different times. We were trying to fundraise to try to do this referendum, and we've seen, some funders, this was after the RICO charges started hitting, they like, ooh, are we going to be caught up in the RICO if we give y'all money for it? So like, we've experienced that sort of thing. But in terms of like moving the sort of strategies and tactics that we felt was necessary to do, like, to do what need to be done, and then we'll, clean up the consequences later. And I have yet to feel those. And so again, knock on wood, I hope that doesn't, but yeah. And I want to be naive about it. And I'm sure, like, again, there are other examples where that has become a challenge, particularly with the bail fund. We actually just got a win yesterday where the Supreme Court said, pretty much said, no, y'all can't tell people that they can't bail people out in some of the ways they were essentially going to shut down the bail funds. Grateful for that. But yeah, I feel like if there are other contradictions or other challenges that folks are seeing, it'd be beautiful to have an outside read. I might be just, too in it too deep,
I'm just, if I'm following this, because I don't know, I'm not close enough, but when I'm seeing hearing what you're saying and seeing the comments from Musa and others about decentralization has made our response to state repression less coordinated and less effective, I can't help but think of it. So correct me, anybody correct me if I'm not getting this right, but what I've always struggled with since the rise of movement for Black Lives or Black Lives Matter, and the idea of leaderlessness and leaderful and decentralized, I've always rebelled against that, and part of it I think is the bias, just having suffered the U.S. military and seeing how effective organized leadership can be in taking people from all over the world and making them think alike and function alike, not for the right purposes, but I admit I'm impressed by that ability. But specifically, I'm thinking of when I'm seeing the word decentralization, I keep thinking, and hearing Dhoruba, when Dhoruba bin Wahad is talking about, at the time Fred Hampton was assassinated, at the time Dhoruba and the Panther 21 are set up, there was an attempt to create and solidify a central committee, a Democratic Central Committee, and which seemed, from my estimation, to be the right way to go in handling and organizing a broad-based or a broad movement, nationally speaking. So I don't know. I'm not really going anywhere with that. I'm just listening and responding and thinking through, and so I'm just putting that out there. That's what I feel like we should be pointing to. And that's sort of what I mean in terms of even expanding or developing this after party concept, that if there is clarity around from the national elections to the most local, if there's a set of criteria that we're saying we're all in agreement, we're not running a candidate or supporting a candidate if you don't follow these minimum standards. your police budget has to be no more than half the budget being spent on social services and healthcare. I don't know, something like that. If you're not advocating these bare minimums, we're not rocking with you. And then that would have to be organized centrally to work nationally and be monitored and assessed and voted up, whatever. So I'll stop there, but
listen,
go
that's
ahead,
the
yeah.
only that's the only no, I don't say that, but that's one of the only things Maynard Jackson got correct. And when he had the 10 black card or what, that's the only thing.
Oh, I see. Right.
And but I agree. I agree that's what it does. And even so, and Mary, you can respond. I just think the struggle around, again, decentralization and even democracy, I feel like it just means everything and then nothing. So I don't even know if some people in group and external group even have the same concept of it. So yeah, but go ahead and respond.
Yeah. And I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I was in a deep conversation the other night with somebody about this around decentralized versus forget the other word. It's another word that I'm looking for. But I think that that certainly there's like the being able to like being deep and highly coordinated work for sure. I feel like InfraBL over the years, like we've been trying to like, get it together, test it on, try it on more. I feel like we have a basic alignment around, our political values, abolitionists, Black queer feminisms, we about, building power, all the things, right? And I feel like though, if I'm speaking just specifically to Atlanta, that I feel like there's deep alignment on folks like we don't want Cop City, clear about that. But I think there is something in the water around the level in which we can coordinate, because this struggle has been going on for years. And now I'm like, in hindsight, this struggle going on for years. And when you think about the number of people who have shown up to city council meetings, the number, like literally 18 hours, you know what I mean? City council meetings, long meetings into the next day, right? So many people have engaged the struggle and put their hand out on some way. And there isn't a central way in which those people are being, brought along, or, some people, I went to the event, but I don't know how to stay in touch. And then so I like follow the hashtag, it's a lot like that, And so I think that has not served us. And yeah, I think there are certainly probably some other ways that I'm not clocking, but I believe that part of the assignment and what this opens up is, I'm like, the invitation has to be created. When we did the starter referendum, I was like, y'all know these little progressive whites is finna flood this you know what I mean, this opportunity, you know what I mean, they mad about it for whatever their reason, and they gonna be like, yes, I get to do something, and I was like, part of our work is to also, they can't just come in and then we not radicalize them, they not find political home, or else this could turn into one of our worst nightmares if we don't get them organized, real talk, because then they realize, oh, we actually got some power flex to do some stuff, and if they don't do that within the container that we're trying to build, with the ideology, with the vision, values, etc., that we're trying to assert, that's going to be a problem. And so there is a gap in terms of who's organizing and bringing folk in, who are coming in at all different sort of, stages of their political development. That is very much still a gap. And I think that some have tried to fill it over the years. But I think we're also, generally dealing in a situation where people like, they ain't trying to join stuff no more. People like, oh, I ain't joining. There's a lot of distrust. All these things, everything gets relegated. It's like, well, I ain't gonna be a part of the nonprofit industrial complex. I'm like, we ain't talking about the structure. We talking about being in relationship and accountable to a set of people. And I think people over conflate those things. So yeah, just some thoughts.
It's roughed out in these organizing streets. It's rough. And it's hard because, people have other things going, right? Like if your job is organizing, then there's a whole different sphere that comes with than if your job is, serving tables or working in a shop or like it, it's a tough position to be in. But I also know you had limited time and it is noon, so I try my best to hold to the times that people give me. So is there anything that you want to share before we let you go? And thank you so very much for giving this time and for sharing your knowledge and information. And I am so looking forward to actually meeting you in person and doing the things. So thank you very much. But please take a minute or however long to share if there's anything you want to share before you drop off.
I just want to just send a lot of appreciation. I listened to the show. I've been a big fan of you, Jared, for a long time. So I'm kind of like, ooh, I'm on the show, yo. So
wow.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Renee. Thank you for your work and your labor, which is, open the eyes of the masses around what time it is, and giving us the opportunity to, do something about it and build power around it, and to hopefully, do something that is, coordinated, and that actually changes not just the material but spiritual conditions of our people. That's what I'm after. And so, yeah, just a lot of deep gratitude and appreciate the comrades who asserted questions. Now I'm be thinking all day like, ooh, so thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, just a lot of mad love and respect. If you're in Atlanta, if you see that mayor, don't you let him go around kiss no baby. He should not be able to get no free haircuts in this city. If he in this city, you know what I'm saying? If he in this city and you see him, you better be giving him the smoke, and make sure you turn your phone on so everybody can see, sir, why are you bullshitting with the people? Do not let him walk through these streets as if he has not betrayed our people. Yeah. So that is my challenge and my ask. Give him the smoke, y'all.
Mary, the energy is infectious. Thank you very much for the work, for coming through, and forgive me, Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, but anytime you got porch time on a Saturday, come through. You know what I'm
Yeah, for real. For real.
Right, yeah, and we all look forward to meeting in person sooner than later, but appreciate you and keep up the great work. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Y'all take care now.
Appreciate you.
All right, peace, peace, peace. Man, she had me at the fuck. That look, I'm telling you, when I watched that clip, when I first saw it, it's that before she even spoke, I'm like,
she had the head tilt, the head tilt, the squint. She was like, wait a minute,
back.
What?
I got this.
What?
But listen, real quick, before we move on, if you don't mind, either of you, I just got 2 new books in the mail. So this one
is the other one is 600 pages. I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'm gonna get so this one came out last year and I was late to getting it. The Black Belt Thesis Reader with a forward from Eugene Puryear. And the joint is already, I'm gonna come back to that in a second. And then this one, they don't show you on the cover.
It's blurred, a little blurry.
When you see it, the picture on the thing, you don't see this. You only see this.
600.
Yeah. Gerald Horn.
How?
So I'm only a couple pages in on that one, and it's already I mean the footnotes, it's just so thorough. So I can't wait till we all get into that. But in here, this reader, just something, and Mary was talking about it. There's an essay in here, Negroes and the Crisis of Capitalism in the U.S. from 1953 by Du Bois. And in like 5 pages, he did the whole buying power. He wrote all my work in like 5 pages. And I don't recall seeing this particular essay before I got this book the other day. But just quickly, he talks about, I actually highlighted, I picked the wrong page. But he talks about the importance of the press and propaganda and creating public opinion. And then he talks about this class of the black bourgeoisie that he doesn't quite call that, but he calls, the upper group. And one of the points that he makes in here that I thought was really important, that I had not really thought of in that way, is that he makes the point that we're often encouraged in Black struggle to do things extra institutionally that create collectives. So we're constantly being encouraged to create cooperatives, collectives, to work through our churches, through other, to pool resources. But he points out here, but we're never allowed to extend the logic of that to supporting and advocating socialism. That why are we doing all of this pooling resources and circulating dollars and susus and all the things that we're doing and not going to the full extent? We don't even, the logic is no, the logical conclusion to that is a socialist organized economy. But we're not, and he points to, he says that talking about what is now the attitude of this upper group, or the Black bourgeoisie, toward the present capitalist crisis in America. For the most part, they are capitalists in thinking, believing in, quote unquote, making money, in saving and investing. When they hire labor, they exploit it, as do their white neighbors. In businesses like insurance, they employ the same methods as white insurance companies within the protection of color discrimination. The colored landlord is no different from the white. Many Negro fortunes have been gained in antisocial activities like gambling and so on and so on. You know, he's got a little bit of a bourgeois attitude to street accumulations of wealth, but anyway, so when I'm hearing Mary talking about, again, in Atlanta, the Black bourgeoisie and this, that, and the third, we have another great essay from Du Bois that is often ignored from the end of his life because we can't read anything past the color line that he wrote in 1903, ignoring it 50, 60 years later. But I really just love the point that he makes, that he ultimately makes in here, that we're constantly being told to find other ways to perform collective activity, but never to advocate an actual socialist.
Well, duh, Jared. Well, duh, because compared to my mother's next door neighbor, socialists and communists, they still got wealthy people, and they still got the wealth. But I have to tell you this before we go. Like,
the name of the essay, real quick. I'm sorry, my bad. Someone asked in the chat: "Negroes and the Crisis of Capitalism in the U.S." is the title of and it's one of the essays in the Black Belt Thesis Reader.
So yesterday I was at the bar and I randomly asked the bartender, which is a white dude, I was like, "Do you know what buying power is? You ever heard of buying power?" He was like, "Huh?" He said, "Like, you mean like consumer power?" And then he just kind of like went blank. And then the other white guy was sitting there. He was like, "Oh yeah, well, purchasing power, you know, is important." And then I gave him an analogy. I said, if I got the agave plant on my land, and I got a factory, and I make the tequila and I sell it to this bar, and you buy it, do you have power? He just turned red and he said, I see what you're saying. And then he kind of walked away. So I said that to say you need to use that analogy. Yeah.
I will. I've been getting a lot of suggestions after the Malvexed experience, and there's been a lot of suggestions.
I hear Renee's take on that. Renee, did you see your homeboy getting jumped by them ladies?
So, you know, I'm in the Discord and I get like notifications that like pop up. And what I got on my screen was why they do that to Dr. Ball. And I was like, who did what to Dr. Ball? So that was wild. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? And so I read the thing and I saved the video and I watched the EYL yesterday. So I have not actually watched the full conversation yet on the show. But given your conversation yesterday on EYL, I think I have a fair picture. But, you know, in the end, the problem is always the same problem, which is people are simply unwilling to acknowledge that they have been duped by the capitalist system. So once you try to point out to somebody, and this was, you know, one of the things when Jared came and spoke to my students, and he said, how do you know that you like what you like? And I will never, ever forget you asking that question, because now that is always the question in my mind when someone talks about, like in a song, or having a preference for something, or, you know, thinking like this thing is the best thing, you know, of the group, and how we all use like ratings and stars and all these things, right? This understanding that almost everything that you hold in your mind as a thing that you have a preference for has been placed there by something else, right? It's very few things that you like. I can't even, in saying this out loud, I can't even think of one thing that I can say like I truly like, because I discovered it on my own, right? And decided that this is the thing that I like over something else. There's always something else that, you know, was the predicate for, like something else that told you, go try this thing, or go look at this thing, or go eat this thing, or whatever have you. And so it's a very, for me, whenever I see you have these conversations with people, Jared, and they get angry, it's because people don't like to be told that they don't know what they think they know. And it's really that simple, right? Like at its core, if you think you know something, or you've been told you're an expert, quote unquote, in something, or this is your field of study, or you wrote a book, or whatever have you, like to be told that the understanding of that thing is incorrect is jarring for people, right? And they don't want to have that conversation. They would prefer to tell you that they're your elder and you're disrespectful and blah, 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 and then actually engage in a conversation where they have to question their own beliefs. People are very rarely willing to do that, to question themselves and to question what they think they know. And, you know, for me, even it's a hard thing. Like when somebody says to you, but well, that don't make sense. Like, what about this thing? And you have to really step back and make that adjustment to have the openness and the willingness to undo your own beliefs about yourself. That's a big ask. It's a strong ask for a lot of people. And, you know, if you're a quote unquote elder, or you're a quote unquote expert, like you're almost always unwilling to do that, because, you know, you're about to undo the thing that made you money, or that made you popular, or that got you on, you know, got your articles written up in some newspaper or whatever. Like, to actually have to back down on those things, that's a lot. Like, you messing with folks' pockets. They ain't trying to do that. They ain't trying to do that.
So that's what I really liked about what Du Bois said in this essay that I had not ever seen for whatever reason, and in pointing out that in at least 2 points, not to give anybody an out, but he does point to what I think is, of course, important, obviously, that a lot of our public opinion has been shaped. I mean, he talks about it in the context of propaganda in 1953, and in the creation of a class, or this upper group that he's talking about, that is, using my terminology now, constructed and shaped to see making money, to see, as Malveaux said, the attraction of ad revenue and corporate investment as a powerful solution to Black inequality, and it's just not. But yeah. So I get it. I understand the trauma that is caused by all of this, but yeah, I think
trauma that needs to be caused, right? Like,
yeah, well,
one of the initial conversations you and I had about your book was like, when people start saying to you, well, what's the solution? Don't even have an argument about why you don't have a solution. Your solution is to break the propaganda, like to break the myth. That's your solution, right? Like, start there. Start with getting people to understand that the thing that they think they know is bullshit and is not. I did ask someone, somebody of course brought that up in the comment section of the video, and
Yeah, and I agree, Geechee, we should get to Hiram's question. But I was asking, so because they were saying the same thing, your solutions aren't good or whatever. And so one, I was asking, do you feel like in that setting I got to, share my solution? And then the other one is so you think hers were a solution? So is that what you're arguing?
Yes.
Red.
Listen.
Boycott red.
No, that's the second one. That's all right. The best one is if we gonna spend with our oppressors, we gonna demand our oppressors to invest in us. That is profound. I've never heard that clarity ever in my whole life. So that's the one we need to follow. That's the one I'm following.
Yeah, that was deep. That was deep. And
what was
and
Hiram's question? I think I missed it.
Did you? Oh, hold on. I didn't even realize my laptop isn't plugged in. It's about to shut down.
Okay.
So pull that up for me.
No, I got it. All right. So, Dr. Jab, do you think that resistance to socialism is due to the race-first position of many of those intellectuals that would dismiss it as white man logic?
I think that's a really huge
resistance due to race-first positions. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a huge factor. Okay, for instance, this event is by Baba Imhotep's crew or PLM. They are a race first organization, and they're
in Baltimore,
yeah. And so they will have the symposium around revolutionary or reactionary, and I think a lot of times, even the conversations I've had, I've heard the argument of socialism and all this other stuff is white man's logic. But in terms of like entrepreneurial and any other language, or just speaking English in general, that doesn't get equated to white man's logic. So I do think that's a heavy factor. I don't know if it's the main thing, but I mean, it's really tough to speak in English with people and talk about white man's logic. This is a really frustrating and tough thing. But
I largely agree. I think so. As again, just Du Bois reminds in this essay, sort of the grand logic of the United States overall is to be anti-communist, anti-socialist. So everybody gets this overlay of anti-communism, anti-socialism, and a pro-capitalism that doesn't actually explain what capitalism is or how it works. So I'm always fascinated by how few people seem to be able to explain what it really is and how it works, despite it being just accepted as better. So that's one thing. I do absolutely think that there is that persistent problem in Black spaces of socialism is the white man's logic, without, as Geechee is pointing out, the parallel or the parallel that business is somehow African revolutionary. Like it's like somehow so why is one white and the other one not white? But that's how the propaganda works. And this little project I'm working on that I'm supposed to be finishing this month is I'm loving it, although I'm struggling with how I'm put it all together in my own writing, but I'm loving this exploration into the history of the Black capitalist logic, trying to trace this subsidiary of capitalism is good that targets Black people and how it pops up, which is why I got that essay, wanted to get this book anyway, just to see and in particular the debates in the Black community around capitalism and Black capitalism that have been erased, that many proponents today of Black entrepreneurialism, either on the left who call it some part of a nationalist African-centered or African nationalist revolutionary movement, or more conservative Black capitalists, what all of them seem to not be aware of or ignore or want to whatever, is that there have been debates going back as long as this has been advocated. There have been Black people saying this don't work. It's not going to work. We tried it. It didn't work. So people are constantly telling me, you want to just keep advocating some old stuff. And I'm saying, no, you're advocating the old stuff.
Right.
You're
right. And it really is a difficult conversation to have because people are simply unwilling to divest themselves from this idea that like you can make it, right? Like you can pull your bootstraps up, or you can be an entrepreneur, or, and then it's always, it always circles back to, so you don't want to support Black businesses, which is also not the point, right? Like there's always this circular reasoning for like why we should not be paying attention to the fact that the entire system, like on a whole, does not work for the vast majority of people.
And that's the thing. If Richard Wolff is right that 3% overall of the entire population are employers and 97% are employees, similarly, we should be asking, why is so much of our emphasis on the 0.1% of Black people who are business owners and not the 99% of the rest of us who are not? So that, even that logic of all this discussion around Black businesses as opposed to what about the Black consumers? What about the Black laborers? Why aren't we focused on what's better for them? Because it's clear that business is not the solution for labor.
So
right.
you know what's interesting, Jared? Like, so with Renee talking about the Horatio algorithm, right? The one day you're gonna make it, so that's why you need to protect it. And we talking about debates that's happened a long time ago. And then you also talk about, or before you talk about the great debate that happened in New York, where Marimba Ani and them was struggling. And it just makes me think of Amos Wilson, which so the Psychology of Self-Hatred was a posthumous book that Sababu put out. And these are all based off of his lectures. And in the lectures, all the time, he has a Q&A at the end of the lecture. And I think that video got scrubbed because I can't find it right now. But in that book or in that lecture, when he talked about the Horatio algorithm, he talked about the hope thing. Jesse Jackson ran off of hope. He didn't live to see Obama, but Obama ran off of hope. And as long as you give the people hope, you ain't got to give them food. But at the end of that lecture, there was a sister who ate him up and asked him about socialism, and she ate him up. He's stuttering, and he agreed that, like, to be honest with you, I don't know if that debate was able to be. It was like an impromptu debate. If that's able to kind of be put on a space, it would be excellent. And as we talked about before, but unfortunately, the people who engage Amos' works, it's like they engage the title of Black Power. They don't look at the book. They engage like a smorgasbord. They pick out different things that they like about him. But the struggles that he did with even in the book, like the policy formation chapter 10, it almost undo most of the book. And people forget that he didn't compile that book together. Most of the books that's printed, he didn't compile together. People posthumously put it together and wing some stuff. And I believe if he was alive at that great debate in New York, he would have been on Ani's side as well. Like, Obama ain't it. But again, I just think people with that particular book, it made me think about all the things we were talking about. The Horatio algorithm is one of the most powerful things. Like, people are literally running cover for something that's killing them.
Yeah. And one of the first things I remember reading years and years and years ago that was, was that the myth is a lie. And for all people, that white folks can't expect it. And again, that's why they were running those war games in 2018 in preparation for the uprising of Generation Z. Not because they were Black, but because Generation Z was filled with a bunch of white folks who were not going to get what they were promised. And the Air Force and the military was expecting an uprising. In some way, thank God for George Floyd, all that rage could be directed through George Floyd's killing and then suppressed underneath a $50 billion corporate buyout of a movement, as opposed to the threat that the war games were truly, worried about.
I'm sorry, Renee, but this last question, Jared, there's a couple times that she was saying stuff. What's her name? Dr. Malvo. And you was like, what the hell is she talking about? But when you talked about the buy off, and she's like, it's not even a buy off. And then she ended up saying that they kept the money in terms about the George Floyd at the jump.
Oh, yeah.
She literally said it's not a buy off. She disagreed with what you said and went and said they kept the money for themselves or something like that.
Yeah. The whole thing was bizarre. I wasn't. It was very bizarre. But yeah. But anyway, so get these 2 books, everybody. In addition, and
my book stack is so out of control.
No, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm not even going to read all of these books. I mean, that's the thing. I'm not even going to be reading all of the books. It's yeah. No, Chitty Matcha, that's why I don't gamble. I don't have a poker face. Like I can't. I like when I have a good hand, I'm grinning and all red faced, and when I'm struggling, I'm not. It's just like that's why I go broke. I can't gamble.
Look, as long as you know.
Yeah. Well, once somebody walked away with all my money. No, I'm just playing. It only took one loss. Like I only really played craps once, and I lost $150 and I think 5 minutes, and was like, "That's it. I can't. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this." But that don't even require poker face. But I'm just saying, I'm just bad at gambling. You got to know you got to know when to fold them.
I'm a clip her. I'm a clip her. I partially agree and I strongly disagree.
I strongly disagree.
I'm putting that in.
It was classic.
Let's get to the rest.
Yeah, what y'all want to do? Where we going next?
Since we were talking about since Mary's ask was to not let Dickens rest, I think we should talk about Kenya a little bit, because I feel like Kenya is a space, at least right now, where it appears that the people causing a real ruckus is forcing some things to happen that that would not have happened otherwise. And it is, it's been interesting to watch as things kind of unfold, and once it started out with this tax thing that that Ruto was trying to do, and everybody was like, oh hell no, we're not doing that. So they took to the streets, and then the response of the government to that protest has now led to the firing of the cabinet and the stepping down of the police chief and all these things. Now Ruto is still there, and that is one of their asks, is that he just go away, right? But I was curious what you all thought about how this is unfolding in Kenya, and this, what appears to be, as of right now at least, an actual response in favor of the people who are taking to the streets.
I'm really not up on enough of this to other than to broadly say, continued success or effort and struggle to those out there doing it. And then when I see things like this, when I see that Western partners, especially the US, are backing Ruto, it makes me feel like, if I'm following your logic, Renee, this is the diaspora or internationalization of the Dickens problem. That people that are nominally elected or representing the people are not. And but yeah, other than that, I really don't know enough about what's going on there, and I'm just happy to try to catch up. And I'll check the chat for all the answers.
This is because Jared don't read the run sheet.
Well, one, I didn't know that this. I didn't even realize this run sheet existed. So yes, I admit that. But the other problem that I mean, just in general for me right now is I am in a little bit of a myopia. Suffering some myopia around my own little project. So I just haven't been.
But we need that to get done. So go ahead and focus. I'll stop.
Yeah. But but I'm glad to be in community with people keeping me up on some things, because this is crazy. But yeah,
don't feel bad. I haven't followed much. I think I like vaguely saw headlines about like Kenya and the folding or finally folding to America's the U.S. demands of intervening or compromising Haiti, but I haven't been fiercely following either. So
Right. So that was, I mean, and that was at the edge of this, which is happening like in Kenya.
Mhm.
So there's the second column is actually the list of demands that have been put out by the young people in Kenya. And part of what made this shift with the firing of the cabinet and the resigning of the police chief was there were, and I don't want to mess the number, it's either 29 or 39 protesters who were killed by the police in response to them kind of taking to the streets about fighting back against this this finance policy that was about to get put in. And so I just thought, as we always have these conversations about organizing and mobilizing and taking to the streets and protests and all these things, and one of the difficulties in this country specifically is, you can have millions of people who come out and support something and the end result is nothing, right? Like for all that came out during that summer in 2020, what we got essentially was more police, more money for police, more money for training police, more like it resulted in, streets painted with Black Lives Matter and ice cream at the White House and a holiday that Black people still have to work on. It literally resulted in something that was not beneficial at all to the material conditions of the people who are most impacted. And so I thought it was interesting to see how in Kenya, people taking to the streets, at least on the surface right now, seems to have resulted in some actual change, right? In what happened in a concession by government. And I just thought that was very interesting.
And so then they Ruto, he rescind the tax hikes and stuff like that, or what?
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah.
Yep. He was going to put in that finance bill and he pulled it completely because the people came out and they were like, oh, hell no, we're not doing this.
Well, here's your point. Your Geechee, your parents, your family has a point, and this is why the protesters are saying reduce all MPs' salaries and allowances to be capped at 200,000. What is that? What currency is that there? Kenyan shillings? Is that what that is?
Possibly.
I don't know. But MPs cannot earn more than doctors in a third world struggling economy. It's totally unacceptable. So there are rich rich elite groups.
Well, but technically, Ortega just cut his salary again. So Ortega's salary is cut, and so that don't work over there. Maybe over there, but not.
Right.
Not in.
Well, part of what was one of the things that initiated this pushback was apparently the government officials in Kenya were like posting videos of their like lavish lifestyles, right? Like they were.
So that's why they're being said. So, is that why it's said here that they have to travel in government-owned vehicles, trains, airplanes, and helicopters to curb corruption and conflict of interest?
Yes.
So because what are they, private jetting and
Yes, I mean, and I didn't see any of the actual videos myself, but I've been, kind of following the story as it's been going, and it's just, for me, watching an actual protest have the result, at least one of the results that it was seeking to have, to me was like, oh, so this can work, right? It does, not that this is the only place, but right now, like as we're speaking, this is something that is happening and working and having a result. And I just thought it was worth pointing out, like, there are situations in which when the people rise up and say like, yo, we're not doing this thing, that there could actually be a response that is in line with what the people are demanding.
Well, as Gamadi reminds us, as the currently reelected, uncontested member of the Hickory Ridge Village board, I don't want anybody to curb, my enthusiasm when it comes to my transportation. So when you see me in my Bugatti. I don't want people to be talk about you got to take local transportation to the board meetings. I mean,
I think you're a little bit too tall for a Bugatti, but sure.
Is that how it works?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
I don't even
You
know
complain about
Bugattis
your
are still
back.
a hot car.
You complain about your back and all that. You ain't gonna be able to do it, bro. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Well,
you can stand outside, take a picture.
I can't stand y'all. So
that's about as real as it would ever get anyway. Find a car, take a picture next to it. Photoshop.
With the little AI.
Yeah. Is this what we
No, that was
not yet.
That was from the thing I said, one of the sources that you could look up since you said you wasn't looking at it.
All right. So we'll stay on the continent real quick. So the Sahel region, so this is Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, have announced that they are formally setting up their confederation. And you know, the people outside of the Sahel region are like, oh no, what's going on? Because the last thing that, you know, anybody outside of Africa wants is for there to be any kind of united front in Africa. And I remember going back to when the coups first started, a lot of conversations about being cautiously optimistic and, you know, watching to see like how things played out. And I think, you know, they're obviously in the region moving forward towards trying to do something, you know, that it's never had, like it's just not a thing, right? Like this idea of three African countries getting together and shunning, you know, the united front that was in part created by the US and kicking out the colonizers and working with, you know, the groups. And I know there's a lot of questions about Russia and China and all the different things that are influencing Africa in this moment, but I do think it's worth taking a moment to be like, all right, well, they're doing the thing that they said they were going to do, and you know, there we go. I mean, I'm a little excited about it because I like to see things moving forward, and I think it's important to watch as these things transpire to see if that cautious optimism can be, you know, swayed a little bit towards actual optimism. You should always be cautious with things. In reading about this, though, something that I learned about, which shout out to moms, because moms always is like, did you know this thing? Did you all know that tomatoes, of all things, are a major crop in Burkina Faso?
No.
And apparently, within the country, it is a major export that was making a lot of money for France before, but was not given any money back. Like people always talk about, you know, resources in the terms of like, you know, oil and metals and all these things, but tomatoes as like an actual import export in a country is like, who knew? Right. And so one of the things that Burkina Faso is doing is they are building a plant for tomatoes, and they are going to utilize this crop to actually benefit their people. Like who would have thought? Who would have thunk it? Tomatoes.
Who would have thunk it?
Thunk it?
That sounds like dangerously like nationalization. So
and that's literally, yep, I know.
So since you brought it up, Renee, I don't want to lead us into, well, I do want to lead us into it actually. So when you think about the cautious optimism, and then you think about Palestine, and the protracted struggle that's happened there, and then so when you think about imperialism as, you know, as a whole, when the fighting off imperialism is happening, do you think there is, along with people, you know, talking about cautious optimism, do you think there is a less of a focus on Africans who are doing pretty much the same thing, or fighting the same kind of enemy, but in their own way with their own situation? And should or are people focusing on those struggles just as well as they might be focused on Palestine. Because again, when I hear cautious optimism, I don't know if I heard that type of language in referring to Hamas struggling to fight off the imperialists. But I feel like when we start talking about the Sahel, which again, if you can track this all the way back to Gaddafi being murdered and how that impacted the Sahel and the trajectory they were on and the material conditions that they're fighting. So again, I wonder if you think, or how do you see the parallel between how people respond to one versus the other?
No, I mean, you're right. And part of the thing that I would love to encourage people to stop doing is, stop doubting Black people so much, right? Like every time an African goes to do something, it's always like that cautious optimism or the question or the can they do it, and all those things. And I do wonder if that's not part of the problem, right? Like instead of jumping in to support this idea that these people can actually get rid of the imperialists, they can kick out the French, they can start to move towards kicking out the US, they can create an infrastructure, they can work together, they can create their own banking system, they can decide like we're going to allow our people to travel through these 3 countries and we're going to work together, like all those things, and just say good, like go do it, right? Like, because frankly, part of the problem in Palestine is Israel has just gone wild, right? Like I know I certainly did not expect the response that has happened thus far. And there probably should have been a little more cautious optimism with regard to stopping Israel, because nothing has stopped them. And we're now, working on an unknown amount of people who have lost their lives. And I don't even know how many people who have been harmed, and all, like, and you're right, that conversation about cautious optimism was not part of the dialogue, to my knowledge. You're correct. And even now that the US has fully embedded itself again in the discussion of negotiations, and now that there's this supposed conversation where Hamas is considering like allowing this ceasefire to happen while not pushing Israel to leave Gaza, like, there are all these things that are happening that are not going to be beneficial at all to the Palestinian people. And in the end, the goal remains to remove an entire population of people from their ancestral lands. Like nothing has changed with regard to even pausing what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. And so, yeah, I don't, you're right. Like, I don't really have like, I don't know that did I answer your question? Like, okay.
No, I was curious. And I mean, Jared, if you've seen a I don't know, parallel, but your observations of how, people maybe online or just in general engage with the two happenings. So what's happening in the Sahel, what's happening in Palestine, the whole idea of fighting off imperialism, and how it seems like there's a certain scrutiny towards Africans in terms of like, oh, well, I don't know. Well, it sounds good, but I don't know. The cautious optimism thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, I haven't seen any that's interesting, but I wouldn't have been looking carefully enough to notice it if it is going on. There's already an imbalance and attention paid, obviously, to what happens on the continent to Palestine, especially now. But so I that would be interesting to track and trace to see to what extent people are more gung-ho, if I'm understanding you, and saying go Palestinians, but hold Africans. Like one thing that I did note that I found interesting, just quickly looking at this article Renee was sharing, is that in the economics of the Confederation section, I do like what they're saying. I mean, it's all about, I made the joke about nationalizing resources, but Traore is talking about Niger's uranium that lights up Europe and that needs to change. Is talking about setting up a stabilization fund in place of dependence on the IMF. I'm like, go, go, go. And my thing, I don't think I really got into what's happening in the Sahel debate and how we should assess it. I was, but in general, I am go, even if imperfect. Let's I mean, in general, I guess it's not scientific. It may not even be properly logical, but I just am for the destabilization, the disturbance, the disruption, even if it is not perfectly set. But they seem to be headed in the right direction. And if they continue to go in this, I did want to quickly pull up some evidence referring back to what we were just talking about. If those in the Sahel continue to do what they, seem to be talk about doing, maybe they too can reach, the status I've reached. So I just wanted, you said I'm too big for the car. I just want to let you know that I'm out here with my Bugatti. So, so, but yeah. And hopefully, because that is obviously the goal of all revolutions, to get you in a car. So let's hope that
I woke up in the new Bugatti.
Hey, I mean, if my president is black and my Lambo's blue, how about my whole continent is black and my Bugatti is made on the continent? How about that?
Oh, proud of you.
Does that work? No? Okay.
I can't. All right. So we got like, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes. So there are two things that I want to make sure that I don't forget to do. The first is, so for a while I've been behind the scenes with Public SwR Amplified, which is a small independent nonprofit news outlet based out of Newark, New Jersey. And a while back, you helped to share the article that I wrote on whether or not policing was antithetical to democracy, which it is. And so we are now in a process. I'm going to help more with the outlet, and we're going to try to move towards a new platform and kind of redesign and a whole thing for the outlet. So I have been given the task of asking our audience if I can get a few people to volunteer to be part of a focus group for us, which would essentially be like you looking at the website and looking at design and answering some questions, maybe a couple of emails, nothing that's going to be super, super time consuming. But since we do have such a great chat and we do have a large audience that joins every week, I figured I might be able to hustle a few people into helping. So there's a very simple 3-question Google form that I will ask folks if they're interested in helping us out with this process to complete, so that we have a means to contact and communicate with you to ask the asks with regard to this process. But if I could get a few people to help, that would really, really help me, and it would help Public SwR Amplified as we try to move forward towards shifting out of our current website into doing something else. So the link to the Google form is on the sheet. Jared, if you don't mind dropping it in the chat and then adding it to the notes. And
this is where is it? What is it?
The top
Public
line,
SwR Amplified.
Yep.
And the first link or the forms?
The first link is the website, the current website, if folks are interested in just seeing what the what the outlet does and the kind of news that we provide. It is from a completely community-based point of view. So everything that is written is by people in the community. And then the Google form is the next link over. And that is if people would be so kind as to sign up to help out and be part of a focus group, that would help us greatly to have some people to kind of bounce ideas off of and to ask questions. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I'll put those both in the show description and when we wrap up here. But they are both in the chat if folks want to. You know, since we have this sort of collab with Geechee here, this is earn your Saturdays. It's time for you to earn your Saturdays with Renee. Put in some effort.
Oh, you're gonna do something.
You gonna do something. You know what I'm saying?
And Geechee, we still need to finalize. We never circled back when we came on without Jared, and we talked about doing the survey to try and finalize that list. We need to circle back to that as well.
Right.
Maybe we can do that. Maybe we can plan to do that.
Yeah, before you get here, don't you come to Atlanta in August?
Yes.
See, let's do it.
All right, works.
And what's happening in Atlanta?
Don't mind your business, bro. Why you
I
asking
know,
all these questions,
and I'm
man?
just saying, everybody talk about being in Atlanta. I didn't get no invitation.
We don't got no Bugattis down there, bro. We only got Teslas.
Well, if you don't have my Bugatti, then I'm not gonna be there. So never mind. So you're right. Never mind.
There's a Cop City convening with multiple organizations who are.
You know, I don't need to be with y'all Cop Cities. You know what I'm saying?
So I barely got an invite. I don't have to be. I don't want. I don't need to be down there. You know what I'm saying?
He got his own Cop City at Morgan State, man. Nobody got time for that.
I mean, really, you're right. I'm gonna have my own Cop City gathering in Baltimore. What's the date when you have yours? Mine's gonna be the same day. Mine's gonna be the same day. Whatever yours is, mine is. That's whatever. So just whatever y'all think you hear about Atlanta, be in Baltimore instead, because that's where it's gonna be. Now what?
And then the last thing is Mapping Police Violence has a new site. And it is the same person behind it, so I can only assume that he found like a better way to. They both still exist, but this one is mappingpoliceviolence.us and the other one is mappingpoliceviolence.com or org or one. But when I opened the site, it's Sam still on it, so it's just a different map. It looks different. There's a lot more actually on the second site. And
it says sponsored.
Yeah, I know.
Geechee, can you pull it up?
Yeah.
For me real quick, because that
is the link wrong?
No, this the .us one.
Yeah, so this is the new one. Right.
Wait, this is weird. What's going on here? Why is it just going like
Zoom? Because that's every time that those little dots represent.
Oh wow!
But you got how do you do that on the screen?
I'm trying. Okay, I was trying to stop it. There we go.
Okay, there you go. So this is the new Mapping Police Violence site, and I don't have a whole lot, but I did send Sam, and I don't want to butcher his last name, a note to see if he
Sinyangwi.
You can't even pronounce regular stuff. There you go.
That's Sinyangwi. First of all, you supposed to watch our show yesterday. My pronouncing is everything.
Look, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh wow!
I actually saw that part. I saw that part. I think everything is a stretch, but okay.
He's good. He's definitely going to run with that.
Me and Air Doc are doing our things in the streets. So
oh Lord. So I did invite Sam to see if he could come on and talk about this. We'll see if we get a response. I also have been talking to some folks who do different research in different places, and there is a whole team working on surveillance who has offered to come on. So I'm going to try and see if I can get that squared away. But I just this site has so much information on it that I felt like I had to share it because that's what we do. We share things. We share all the things. So
Right on. Well, you know, you mentioned it. I did do a quick search and found that, in fact, there is a new video released. I didn't know you were referencing this. Israel Gone Wild, Spring Break 2024, Genocide, the Genocide edition of Israel Gone Wild. So I thought I would just share that real quick as well. Renee was on to something as usual. You know,
speechless. Yeah.
There's you know, and I'm out here. I'm out here. Just as a reminder,
Terrible.
I'm out here.
Terrible. All right. Well,
good people.
We're wrapping.
Time to stretch, hydrate, get ready for warrior class. Anything either of you want to alert us to? Anything about what's coming or what we should prepare for? Anything, or just ring the bell, support the Patreon, like, share, subscribe.
Well, maybe you can invite Renee to this study session this time, because she fell off. She's too busy for
Which one is this?
Armed Struggle.
Oh, the Armed Struggle one?
That book too big. I can't read it by itself. Everybody read a page.
Mondays be rough, and I look at 7:30 on Mondays.
Yeah, and I have my board meetings that
we're gonna revote.
But they did get me, because you see the you see the JPEG, and it's like this, and then the book shows up,
Bible,
and it's I was like, why is this box so heavy?
How long are we taking to read that? Because that's a lot. That's a long.
Well, we was already talking about it. It's gonna take a little.
It's gonna take some time.
Well, if it'll make you feel better, because the footnotes, and I actually like this, although I used to be criticized for this. The footnotes are at the bottom of each page, and the footnotes are extensive. No, but my point. No, but my point is, if it'll make you feel better, on many of the pages, the footnotes are half of the page. So if you skip the footnotes, the book might only be like 300 pages.
So listen, this is what my book is at my house and I'm not there yet. But I asked somebody in our chat, I was like, yo, is the footnotes is extensive like it normally is? And they said yes, initially because of introduction. But then when they went to the pages, they said it's not that much.
Oh no, every page is literally, at least in terms of length of the page, it's almost, in some pages it's almost, look at that. This is not even a quarter of the page is actual text. The rest of this is all footnotes.
All right, so it's really gonna be like
it's gonna be like 250, 300 pages.
300, about 300 pages. Okay.
If you skip the footnotes, but I never skip footnotes.
Well, I love skip footnotes. It, but I'm talking about like reading. Like you're not gonna go.
No, you got to read it. I do read them. I do, because he puts little summaries and stuff in there. But I do like to see where he's getting stuff. Or when anybody is getting. I like to see it, and I like when the footnote is right at the bottom of that very page. So. All right, but look, I don't want to get in trouble. We got to go.
Yeah,
so peace, everybody. Only because you're willing to fight for.
Thanks, Geechee, for coming on, and thanks again to Mary.
Big shout out to Mary and to Geechee and to all the remixers live and who are late and for some reason watching this on a tape delay. I don't know why. What else are you doing on a Saturday? That's but crazy, see you next time here or more with more Saturday with Renee.